Good afternoon, everyone. It's Stephen Paul from WinExtra bringing you your daily brief of Microsoft news and information for March 28, 2011, and we're back in the saddle after a bit of a break, unintended, but a bit of a break.
An unintended week off recording.
Yeah.
I mean, sickness and
crap.
God knows what. But then Thursday rolled around and you were like, yeah, let's just leave it.
Yeah, let's just
Just leave it go. Let's just scratch this week off and one day.
But you gotta admit, there's some interesting news that hit over the weekend. It just got everybody in an uproar.
I don't know, I think everybody's got their knickers in a twist about this whole Joe Belfiore thing coming out, talking about Windows Phone 7 updates and...
Okay, just before we get into it...
I think all the pussies of the internet came out crying at the same time together, saying, how dare he say these things, it's not true!
But just let's just run a short clip of a couple of his statements that he made in the Channel 9 interview, and then once we finish, we'll get on to the follow-up. So here's the clip, folks.
We learned a lot about the way the OEMs had configured their phones, and in doing update testing for this Nodo update, which adds copy and paste and a bunch of other features, we found some situations where we hadn't anticipated the way the OEM phones would be configured, so we wanted to get fixes in the channel before people went and did Nodo. So the February update is on most phones now. The March update, which is Nodo, started rolling out yesterday, actually, just a few days, well, depending on when you see this, a few days ago. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to throttle it so that it goes to a limited number of phones first, so we can make sure that the update is working really well and that people are going to have a smooth experience. And
before you scale to the world.
Exactly. The phase we're in right now is the early part of that throttling. So all of you out there will see the update depending on whether you are randomly one of the early throttled people and depending on your mobile operator and where they're at in their testing. We develop and deploy the updates instead of all the OEMs doing it separately.
Interesting.
But with Windows Phone, we build the updates generally for all the phones. And we work with our OEMs to make sure that the quality will work, and we do testing on current phones. And then the additional step is to work with the mobile operators who want to test all updates before they go out on their networks. So what some of you will experience is some variation in the timing that you'll get the updates based on your mobile operator, because the mobile operators all have different sort of levels of rigorousness in their test suite.
Well,
I think the people's problem with Joe Belfiore is that he's just not apologetic looking enough, you know? I think they expected that he would come out and talk about Windows Phone 7 and be down on his hands and knees and be like, we're sorry we can't deliver the updates and it's our fault and we're evil bastards and if you give us, you know, leather whips with fish hooks in them, we'll go away and we'll flagellate ourselves or whatever the case may be. But, I mean, you wrote a post on WinExtra after... before he came out and made his kind of retractive email, which I don't believe he should have done, by the way. He should have just come out and say, you know what, you're a pack of whining bastards, bugger off and grow up. Because he came out and he said, and to me, what were no uncertain terms, is look, we're delivering these updates. We build these updates for the manufacturers. We get them ready. We all know damn well that these updates have been ready since last year. Right? It's the carriers. They're the ones that are dicking you over. They're the ones that are pissing you off. The reason we have this really flimsy-looking, stupid schedule that says, you know, phone type, when your update is coming, it's either in testing or it's scheduled, is because we have no control because we tested these things. It works. We gave it out, and now the carriers are just playing how long can we dick our customers along for in order to get more money out of them.
Yeah. Well, I know supposedly, and I was in error when I wrote about this during the week, I had gotten the pre-update, but TELUS had said that was the cut and paste update. Well, it was proven they were wrong. And apparently the Nodo update is supposed to be shipping to TELUS customers tomorrow. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but I mean, look, everybody's going on and on and on about how can Microsoft get Windows Phone 7 back on track. I think it's one of the first things we have in the show notes there, posted by Mary Jo Foley, you know? How can... Look, Microsoft can't get Windows Phone 7 back on track in any obvious sense of the way, unless they do a complete round end on the carriers and just deploy everything through Zoom. It's the only way they can do it. But then, I think it was JDogC was on to me on Twitter this morning about this, and he was like, well, why don't Microsoft just do that round end? And I'm like, well, okay, they'll do the round end, but then customers are faced with $500, $600, $700 a phone. That's why people get contracts with carriers, because they can't afford that outright. And you still have to go and get a data plan with some carrier or other at some point or another. You still have to activate that phone to put it on. And do not think for a second that if Microsoft does a round end, and even if they do turn around and say, you know what, we'll bite the bullet. We will absorb $1 billion or $2 billion or even $3-4 billion worth of subsidies on handsets, right? Which would bring the price way down, and let people sort out their own data plans. As soon as you ring up to activate a data plan or going to activate a data plan, you have to give the number, you've got to give the serial for the phone or whatever. They'll say, okay, what model is it? What kind of phone is it? As soon as you say Windows Phone 7, they'll be like, okay, well, this is this type of smartphone. So not only are you going to have to pay your $50 plus your overage, but you're also going to have to pay, $10 or $15 extra because it's this type of phone. And if you don't think their carriers would do that, they're doing it right now. Okay, they're doing it right now. For example, my wife has an unlimited data and text and 500 minutes plan on her Android. But if she moves to a better Android cell phone that is running 2.3 same as hers, she will have to pay more, even though she already has the unlimited plan, just because this is one of the phones that they consider special. No reason for it other than that whatsoever. And if you think that the carriers wouldn't use that as a way to just say, okay, well, your Windows Phone 7, you're activating and it's unlocked, and we're pissed off, and Microsoft's going to cost you an extra $20.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? If all the carriers do it, which they do, can you say collusion? I know collusion is against the law, but can you say collusion? They'll all do it, and what will your choices be? Either pay the money, or buy another phone off the carriers. Either way, carriers win, you're fucked.
I know.
And I'm kind of getting pissed off too, because Edbot came out, right? And Edbot wrote a good piece talking about, his past experiences with AT&T and how he was blaming Microsoft after, reading what Joe and seeing what Joe Belfiore said and the whole lot, that he's giving Windows Phone 7 another 90 days because he realizes that it's AT&T and he's going to discontinue his contract with AT&T. And everybody's coming out and they're saying, it's Microsoft's fault. They gave the carriers the power. And I know we are part of that. We bitched and we moaned and we said they shouldn't do it. But the more I think about it, the more...
They had no choice.
Exactly.
Because look what happened with the Nexus, all right? There's a prime example. Google came out and said, we are going to sell the Nexus online, unfettered by any carrier. You can buy one, go to the carrier of your choice, get it knocked up and ready to go. And what happened? Away the Nexus went, on came in on the carriers.
Well, look, it's not just that, right? It's everybody, including, what's his name? Is it James Kendrick at ZDNet Mobile? He has come out and they said, no, it's Microsoft, right? And they shouldn't have given over the power. And yes, we bitched and we moaned and we complained about it too, but the example that they all use is Apple, right? But here's the difference. When Apple brought out the iPhone, they tried to get that to go on many other carriers. right?
Yeah, but nobody wanted to touch it.
And nobody would touch it. But somebody at AT&T realized that the iPhone was, in fact, at the time, a paradigm shift.
Yep.
In terms of cell phones, in terms of smartphones. And decided to say, okay, look, we're going to take a gamble on this, give them what they want, but the exchange for that gamble is the exclusivity.
Yep.
All right, which they have now lost. But when Android came into the game, it wasn't a paradigm. It wasn't a shift. It was another iPhone by another manufacturer.
Yeah.
When Microsoft came into the game, again, they're not anything new. It's another smartphone by another manufacturer.
Exactly.
So what leverage do you have to make us say, no, you can't do things our way? And this is something that we have neglected to mention when we've been talking about this in the past. And that is why holding Apple up is not the solution anymore.
No.
It's like comparing apples and oranges. But, I mean, and before anybody turns around and says, well, you know what, Apple is coming to Verizon now and they're still going to do their upgrades through iTunes, well, the answer to that is, of course, they're still going to do them through iTunes. Verizon can't very well expect Apple's existing customers who have been using it for years and that they want to draw to have a different experience just because they're on Verizon. Yeah. They're already losing out on the fact that they can't do data and voice at the same time.
Exactly.
You know, so they have to give them that. But Microsoft and Android, that's why Google doesn't control Android updates.
Yeah, I know, like, Microsoft tried to do the best it could to negate a lot of the problems by going with a common hardware spec across all its phones.
And they have.
And yes, and it worked for them.
The minor exception of a handful of Samsung handsets.
Yes. Plus, you know, we're only talking basically in North America two wireless networks, GSM and CDMA. Yeah. Like, what is so hard to test about that? Nothing. You know, it's drop dead simple. So you got to look at.
Here's what it comes down to, right? Has the manufacturer shipped the phone? Yes. Okay. So the manufacturer is confident that software running on the phone is not going to phone up.
Yep.
Okay. So from a carrier's perspective, all you really have to worry about is how much data is this phone going to use on my network, and will it actually work on my network without, say, you know, causing the whole thing to spaz. Yeah. How long does that really take to test?
20 minutes.
Probably in an automated test environment.
Yeah.
And even in a real world test environment, let's say, okay, let's take 4 or 5 of these things, right? Let's give them to our staff. Let's get them to drive around, you know, so they're driving through multiple cell towers and they're using all the data they can and making calls and whatnot. Let's do this for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If there's going to be a problem, it's going to show up, unless it's one of those really quirky, inane problems that every platform gets that turns up like 1 in a billion.
Yeah, like the Samsung Focus fricking.
I know. Guys, engineers, you know the number 251-281-8730. You know, we know we're oversimplifying the testing process, but. And if you want to fill us in on what really goes on, do. But at the end of the day, this is what it boils down to. Everything has been pre-tested by Microsoft, by the manufacturer. Yeah. The manufacturer has said, this is okay to ship. You know, we've done this. And, you know, if we need to roll out updates, we'll roll out updates. What really is there for AT&T or Verizon or anybody?
Or TELUS. Yeah.
You know, it's a load of bollocks.
Yeah.
But you know where Microsoft is going wrong? And you know, don't think I've come out here just to sort of defend Microsoft. To say,
oh no, we wouldn't want to do that.
Carriers are wrong, because the carriers are wrong. But, you know, Microsoft is wrong in its handling of things too, you know. And it's funny, you hear Joe Belfiore speak, you see the email that he put out to placate the whiners. And, you know, when you look at what he said and read what he said, you can see how heavily involved the lawyers are.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, it's okay. We'll phrase it this way so that we can imply that it's the carriers, but we never actually come flat out and say
the operators own the testing.
Yeah. If Microsoft wants to come out and win support and win the users, they have to stop this bullshit of saying crap like that. The operators own the testing. They have to say, look, we've done everything we can possibly done with the phone. We've heard the manufacturers, we've done the updates have been ready. They've been pushed out to the unlocked phones that can receive them.
Yep.
And by the way, what is this unlocked something or other Joe Belfiore came out with? It wasn't just unlocked phones. It was a minor subset of them again.
Unbranded.
Ah, yes.
Unbranded was the word.
Okay, right. But, you know, why don't they just come out and say, look, it's out, it's running on some phones. The reason you can't get it is because your carrier is being a dick.
Yeah, exactly.
If they turned around and just came out and said these kind of things, okay, obviously they can't say dick.
Well, no.
But, and we probably shouldn't either on the show, but it's not just me. But, you know, they'd win some brownie points, and they'd at least be being honest. I think Microsoft has sort of... They've lost track of the meaning of transparency.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like...
And if there's one area, like, okay, we can go on about, you know, transparency with Windows and transparency with all their enterprise stuff, but if there is one area where they really need to step up to the plate and be transparent and honest, it's got to be with the Windows Phone 7, because they've got too much damn invested in this.
Well, they've got, yeah, they have. I mean, they've got billions upon billions invested in this. I know Microsoft isn't afraid to throw billions upon billions year after year.
We saw that with the Xbox.
But the Xbox was a device that people could bring into their home themselves, hook it up to any internet connection themselves.
Yep.
All right?
Yeah.
Just throwing money at this problem isn't going to stop the carriers.
No. The carriers have to be put on a stake and set on fire.
I'm wondering, right? When is it going to come to a point that, say, Microsoft and Google, possibly Apple at some point, but certainly Microsoft and Google get together and they say, you know what?
Enough.
It's time for us to go to court with the carriers.
Yeah.
And say, look, this is the agreements that we entered into with the carriers. The carriers are deliberately hurting consumers because they want to squeeze every last
pocket. They're hurting consumers.
Security at risk, as we've seen with Android.
Like, they're putting the consumers... They're hurting the consumers, and they're hurting our business as well. It's a double...
It's an anti-competitive business model.
Yes.
Carriers are being the gatekeepers to decide who can and can't compete in the mobile market.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that will come at some point. It has to, because look at the fragmentation of Android and look at the fragmentation of that will occur, that has occurred already with Windows Phone 7. And the first person to turn around and say, well, it didn't happen with Apple, is getting my size 11 boot up their backside, because it's not a valid argument, because you have to consider when the other platforms were released versus when Apple was released, and that was a paradigm shift phone. Yeah.
Okay, now before we quickly get to our other stories, have you got any thoughts on this you want to share with us? Drop us a comment to this post. Leave us a comment on YouTube /WinExtra, or drop us a voicemail at 251-281-8730. And
you've been practicing that, haven't you?
Yes. But anyway, let's get on to the last two quick ones here.
Yeah, we apologize for running long. Folks.
Yeah.
We did take a week off.
Yes.
So, just an extra few minutes.
Another area where Microsoft, this is really confusing, but as the guy over at SlashGear called it, douchebaggery. Say it ain't so, Microsoft. But apparently they want to make it illegal for U.S. companies inside the U.S., all right, to buy from overseas firms that use unauthorized software.
Let's see. Microsoft engaged in douchebaggery. Never!
They're a corporation, aren't they? Tell me another corporation that doesn't do the same sort of crap.
Our corporation was just a legal name for a collection of douchebags. But No, in all seriousness, you know what? We talked about this briefly a couple of weeks ago, and I'm kind of surprised that Shane McGowan, and that's almost an awesome name, isn't it? Like Shane McGowan, folks. It's just a little bit off, you know. But I don't know. I'm kind of surprised that U.S. companies would see this as a bad move. All right, and in some senses it is. They're kind of at the edges of dicking with something, right? And it's kind of saying, okay, you know what? Apple can't buy products from these guys because these guys are using illegal software. But the other side of the coin is this, right? That company is, by default, doing something that is illegal. And I'm sure the trade agreements and stuff like that forbid companies from dealing with companies that are actually doing stuff that is illegal.
Yeah.
You know? And from that... Alright, I'm not a lawyer, but, you know, I'm just trying to edge out where I'm coming from on this one. And it's kind of like, okay, you know...
They're a corporation!
Yeah, but it's like this company is making something... is using illegal stuff to make a product and then selling it to a company. And the company that is buying it knows that that company is breaking the law in order to provide this product.
RICO laws.
So isn't that directly supporting illegal activity?
Indirectly, yeah.
No, it's directly supporting illegal activity. It's not. It's like, here, you make the product using illegal products and we give you money. That's directly supporting it. And, you know, what people tend not to look at here when it comes to Microsoft doing this is that this could have a knock-on effect on Microsoft too.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
It's not Microsoft that it would affect, but it is still a bit decent.
Yeah. Last story, quickly. Everybody's going on, oh, Firefox 4! Firefox 4! It's double the downloads by E9.
Alright.
Oh, God.
First off, from a browser base, I don't like IE9. So let's just get that out there before we even talk about this. I do not like IE9. There's too many problems with it for me. But that's because of my usage model. Okay? I was a Firefox advocate for years. I love the bloody thing. I even have 4 installed. But, you know, I'm back on Chrome now.
Yep.
There's nothing to compete with it. It's
no.
best. Right, now, so let's say Firefox gets bigger market share than IE in no time at all. IE9. Well, duh! I mean, seriously? First off, IE9.
It's only
on Vista.
Yeah, and Windows 7.
Windows 7.
Yes.
So, more than 50% of the market can't run it to begin with.
Yeah.
Secondly, it hasn't even been pushed out through Windows updates yet, I believe.
I think it's coming out the end of the month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Firefox people get that little notification as soon as the new one is released says, your browser is hit, click here to update.
Yeah.
They're people who actively update all the time anyway.
Yeah. Apples and oranges, folks. Apples and oranges.
I'm reading this post on like Tech News World, and they're like, you know, this comes as little surprise because Microsoft get what they deserve.
No.
What?
God, it's good to be back. Anyway.
No, I'm just... That post, Tech News World post, I mean, seriously, that's like mass fanboy ejaculation at the Firefox numbers, you know? Without any thought whatsoever because they're too busy riding the fanboy orgasm.
Yes. Folks, we're sorry it's gone a little long, but we did have a lot to catch up with. But that is today's show. That's... oh. I'm just saying, this has been WinExtra's Daily Brief for March 28th, 2011. Take care, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, folks. We will be back.